Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today's video I'm going to show you how to make smooth scene transitions in Unity using the animator, where it's going to have a cool fade out effect and then it's going to fade in the next scene. So here in Unity I've got a new 2D project and I've just created a scene called Scene 1. And the first thing we want to do is right click in our hierarchy and create a new button. And that's going to create a canvas. And let's just call this button is just going to change scenes when we click it. So let's just call this our change scene button. And now let's take this canvas and let's just set it to screen space camera. Just drag our camera in and scale with screen size just so it's easier to see what it's going to look like. And let's take our button and let's just reset it to the center of the screen. And let's also right click our canvas and create a new text. And let's just move this up. And this is just going to be our title text. And this is just going to let us know what scene we're in so that we can actually see if it changes or not. So we'll just write scene 1 in the text. So let's center it, make it a little bigger. Make that a little bigger, center it again. And just change it to black. There we go. So now what we want to do is create another canvas. And this is going to be our scene transition effect. So let's go UI, canvas, and let's just set it up just like the other one, screen space camera. Let's drag the camera in and let's scale with screen size. And now on this canvas we want to add a panel, so we go UI panel, and then we want to change this panel to all black, and we want to change the alpha to solid. And now we can still see this on top of our canvas, and that's because it's being rendered on the same layer. So if we go to our transition canvas here, let's just rename that transition canvas. Actually, let's just call this our transition. Now for the sorting layer, we want it to be in front of the other one, so we just change that to 1. That way the other one will be rendered behind it. And now what we want to do is go to our transition here. We want to add a new component, and this is going to be a canvas group. And this is just going to allow us to control everything, all the children of this object. With this slider here, we can change the alpha. Okay, so that's how we're going to make it look like it's fading out. So let's just make sure we leave that at 1 for now. And now we go back to our transition here, and we need to add another component, and this is going to be an animator. And now what we want to do is right click in our assets folder and create a new animator controller. And let's call this transition. Let's go back to our transition game object and let's drag the animator controller into this field here. And now we need to use our animation window, and you can open this window by going Window, Animation, clicking there. And now what we want to do with our transition selected, we want to create a new animation clip. So we just click Create, and we want to call this Fade In. And now to create this animation, we want to hit record. We want to go just inside 2 seconds on the timeline. And then what we want to do is go to our canvas group. We want to change that 0 or that 1 to a 0. And we also want to untick interactable and untick block raycasts, because this canvas is in front of the other one. We don't want it blocking us being able to click the button. So just turn those off. And now we can untick record. Let's see what that looks like. And there we go. Fades in nicely over 2 seconds. So now we want another clip to fade out. So we go down here and we create a new clip. And this one's going to be called fade out. And now if we go back to our fade in, and we just select everything here, we Control C to copy, we go back to fade out, click inside here, Control V to paste, and now this one is fading out, but we want it to fade out instead of fading in, so we just switch these. So we move this one over here, move this one back to the start, and then move this one just inside 2 seconds like the other one. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, and it fades to black, the opposite of the other one. Perfect. So now what we want to do is we want to make sure in our animation clips here that we untick loop time, because we only want this to happen once. We don't want it constantly flickering again and again every 2 seconds. So we untick loop time on both of those. And now what we want to do is go to our animator window, and you get to this one the same way, window, animation, and then you click the animator there. What we've got here is the 2 clips that we just created, fade in and fade out. And what's going to happen is when the scene starts, it's going to go into fade in first. So it's going to fade in, and then we want to be able to control when it fades out. So what we do is we go to parameters and we add a new parameter of type bool. And let's call this is fading. And I would right click fade in, make transition, and then we click fade out. And now if we click on the arrow here, we can set this up. So we don't want it to have exit time because we want it to happen immediately when we click the button, and we can get rid of our transition duration as well. And now in our conditions down here, we want to add a new condition. When is fading is true, it's going to switch to fade out. So that's all set up. Let's save this. Now, what we want to do is we want to go back to our transition, and we want to add another component. And this is going to be our transition script. Okay, so let's add a new script. And let's open it up in Visual Studio. Okay, we can get rid of these for now. And what we need is a reference to our animator that we just created. So let's go animator, and let's just call that anim. And let's just get this in the start function. We could just make it public and drag it into the inspector too, but I'll show you guys how to do it this way as well. So we just go anim equals get component animator. And what this is going to do is just get the animator that's attached to the game object that this is on. And our transition script is sitting on the same game object as our animator, so it knows which one to grab. And that's how we link up that reference. And now we need a function that's going to get called when we click our button that's going to change scenes for us. And what we want to do is start our animation and then wait 2 seconds for our animation to finish before we transition to the new scene, because we don't want it to happen halfway. It'll just look really bad. So we do that by making something called a coroutine, and we write a coroutine by writing enumerator and then the name of the function, which we'll call start transition. Okay. And now what we want to do is start our transition on our animator with the parameter that we just created a minute ago. So let's go anim dot set bool because it was a type bool that we created. And we need the name of it, which was is fading. You need to make sure you type that exactly the same as you did, comma, and then we want to change it to true. So we write true there. And that's just going to tick that box in the animator for us. So we've started our animation. Now what we want to do is wait 2 seconds for our animation to finish and then transition to the new scene. So in order to do that, we write yield, return, new, wait 4 seconds, and then we can pass in how many seconds we want to wait. And in this case, it's 2, and it's a float, so we write 2f. And now we want to start our next scene. So we do that by writing scene manager. And if you're using the scene manager, you need to add the namespace using Unity Engine.scene management for it to recognize that. And then you write dot load scene. And in here we pass in the name of the scene. And we want to make this into a variable that we can change, because depending on what scene we're in, the next scene might be different. So let's create a public string. And this is just going to be a text field, and then we're going to call it next scene name. Okay, and then down here, I'm just going to pass that in there. So whatever name we write into the inspector is going to be the next scene. So we can customize it easily that way. Okay, now we have this function sitting on the script, but we haven't called it yet. So we want to make another function, and this is going to be a public function because this is going to be the one that our button's going to use when we click it. And this is going to be a public void. And let's just call it start next scene. Okay, and in order to start this coroutine, we need to write a little bit of special syntax, which is start coroutine, and then inside the brackets, we write the name of the coroutine, open close bracket, just like that. Okay. One more thing we need to do is, if we click this button, we don't want it to just keep starting this coroutine, because during the 2 seconds we're waiting, we don't want to be able to keep clicking it. We could just turn the button off, but we can also just make sure in this script that we are checking to see whether it's been clicked or not. And we do that by creating a bool, and let's just call this is fading, and let's default it to false. And now down here, when we start our coroutine, we want to change is fading to true. And then up here, when we click our button, we want to check if is fading is already true. If it is, the coroutine's already started and we don't need to start it again. So we go if, and we want to check if is fading is still false. So we write exclamation mark is fading to check if it's false. If it's false, then we start the coroutine. If it's not false, we don't want to start the coroutine. So if it's false, we start the coroutine, so we'll move that into there. And if it's not false, we do nothing. Perfect. And then when a new scene starts, this is going to default back to false again, and it's just going to set it all up again for us. So that's all the scripting we need to do. Make sure we save that, and let's go back into Unity. Now we need to go down to our button and make sure we remember to add that on-click event. So we go to our change scene button, we go on click, we add a new event, take our transition and we drag it in. We go down to our transition script and we find the function that we just created, which was start next scene. Okay, let's save that. Now we've only got one scene here, so we want to make another scene. One more thing we want to do first actually is go to our transition and make sure we fill in our next scene name here. So we're in level 1 or scene 1, so we want to move to scene 2. So we type scene 2 there. Now let's create that scene. So what we do is File, Save As, to duplicate our scene here. And let's just call this Scene 2. Okay. And now in Scene 2, instead of transitioning to Scene 2, we want to transition back to Scene 1. So we just change that back to Scene 1. Okay. Now one more thing we need to remember to do is when we're adding new scenes, we need to go to our build settings under File, Build Settings, and we need to make sure we add both of these scenes. So we can just drag them in like that. So scene 1 was already in there, so now we've got scene 1 and scene 2. Whichever one's on the top is going to be the first one loaded, so you want to make sure scene 1 is on top. And we can close that. And now let's go back to scene 1, and let's test this out. So let's save, hit play. And there we go, it transitions nicely. I'm just going to turn off those gizmos. And now when we click on button, it fades out and it fades in. And I actually forgot to change the text there, so we can go quickly do that just so I can show you that it is working. If we go to our canvas, to our title text, and we change this to scene 2. All right, let's try that again. So there we go, it fades in at the start. We hit the button, it fades out, and it fades back into scene 2. We hit this button, fades out, and it fades back into scene 1. So that's how you make simple scene transitions in Unity using the animator. If you found this video helpful, hit the like button or leave a comment below. Thanks for watching.